Hi guys, I recently bought a little band grinder from VEVOR. And if you want to know whether this is the next insider tip or just further technical scrap from Asia and what I plan to do with it, the video is just the right thing for you. One thing is certain, that the conclusion will surprise you, but let's see first which device it is about and what the manufacturer promises. Let's take a look at what the manufacturer promises to this product on the website. So far I have not ordered the manufacturer VEVOR. I say when we translate it, Asian tools, questionable quality. Maybe something is good. Is the device the new insider tip or just other technical scrap? We want to see. So what we see first is the price. 218.99 euros. Not too high at first, but if it is scrap in the end, I don't want to have thrown the money out to the window. And a small disclaimer at this point. I bought the device from my own money because I was looking for something like that. I also thought about building something myself, but at the price, you have to do that to build it yourself. Otherwise, everything I say in the video is my personal opinion, and the video is not sponsored. I bought the device from my own money. Incidentally, shipping went relatively quickly. The device was with me within 2 days and was sent from Germany. So there were no topics with customs, import, etc. Let's take a look at the photos or the pictures, because the whole text, we are honest, nobody reads through that. So let's take a look at how we can use the device. Once in the standard setting, the strap runs around the way I show this with the mouse, so from top to bottom. Or you can fold the device 90 degrees, and then the sanding tape runs horizontally in front of you. What is otherwise very interesting, you can variably adjust the speed with this small electrical box here, and the whole device is operated on a normal socket, so you don't need a strong current, etc. So optimally for use at home or wherever. There are said to be 3 grinding ribbons. Let's take a look at what quality they have and how well the whole thing is going. Next picture. Here we obviously see an application scenario. High-speed brushless motor is mentioned here again. So say a brushless engine. High speed always important. As quickly as possible, not as well as possible. Simply finish as quickly as possible with work. Everyone should take an example. And smooth operation, energy efficient, i.e. with as little energy as possible. Easy and smooth, so getting there quickly. We will find out. Obviously, we also have an application example here. Here we are sanding a piece of wood that throws sparks. This seems to be a special material from Asia. I haven't seen that here in the DIY store yet. Let's just try it out and see if it happens here too. The material will certainly come to us later. So, next picture. VFD, variable frequency drive. So here again, the device has a frequency converter, which means you can set the belt speed variably. Speed from 0, i.e. relatively slow, to 5500 RPM. In other words, revolutions per minute. I assume that this refers to the drive roller. We will then see whether this is fast enough or too fast, and whether we need it at all. Otherwise, you should be able to change the belt speed. Forwards, backwards. Grinding backwards, i.e. adding material again. Interesting thing, but I don't need it. Stepless speed regulation, we'll have to have a look, but it sounds good for now. High efficiency and energy saving, so you really save when you use the machine. So next picture. Here again the sanding belt is mentioned. Compatible with 30 inch by 1 inch, so 760 by 25 millimeters. And as I said, just have a look on eBay. Amazon, there are the belts for, I say, from 1.50 euro each. So it's really negligible, but that is indeed something I looked at before buying. After all, what use is the best device if there are no sanding belts for it, or the belt ends up costing 20 euros a piece? So it's important to find out. What we can see here again is the tensioning and tracking roller. This means that the belt is pre-tensioned via the roller, and the roller can be tilted a little. You can then adjust it so that the belt runs straight. As you can see, these are all rollers that have no guide, so the belt has to stay on track itself. So, here again, what can we do? Metal is what I want to do. We'll try wood, but that's not the main purpose for which I want to use it. And knives. Knives are also metal, but I don't really want to make knives. So, next picture. Circular grinding. Interesting, here a reamer is ground on the side. Well, that's probably right. Here, flat grinding, and this is the other attachment kit that you can mount at the front. It's this straight surface. That means you can grind relatively straight things with it. Personally, I mainly want to use the round roller. I'll show you later what it's used for, but this flat thing is certainly useful if you want to make a knife or other things. So, next picture. Here we can see the two variants of how you can set it up. One in the horizontal position, which is what I mainly want to use later. And then you can flip the whole thing 90 degrees. In other words, the belt runs vertically. Both possible, both sensible, we will find out. But in any case, it's good that it can do that. So here's a summary. I've just briefly mentioned the size, 37.5 centimeters by 18 centimeters. And if you want it in this setup position, 23.5 centimeters high, 550 watts and 7.9 kilos. We'll check the weight, that's relatively easy. I won't check 550 watts, let's just believe it. So, next picture. Let's all click through. What we see in any case, this seems to be a part made of steel. That's also my hope, that the whole thing is relatively robust despite the relatively low price. In other words, as much steel as possible, no die-cast zinc stuff. Simply more steel, better. So next picture. Here again the other structure. Here you can also see the straight plate. In other words, the belt runs around these two rollers at the top and is supported behind them. With the small table here in front, you could not only drink tea on it, but also grind things. And with the support nice and straight, here we go again. There seems to be a second support. You need this addition when the tape is vertical and the addition when the tape is over, or the whole machine. Here again from the side, we can obviously also set the angle. We have to look. And here, the whole thing from the front. Now we have seen enough. Let's see what is in the box and how the whole thing is packed. First of all, it says, Tough Tools, half price. Well, better than the other way around. I have already experienced Tough Price and Half Tool, but we will see what's on it. Everything packed a little questionable, but I have to say directly, I have already opened Asian packages that smelled much worse for any questionable oil. So here, packaging well, but otherwise actually very solid. Otherwise, I am pleasantly surprised by the quality. This is the big clamping roll you see. The roll itself is made of aluminum with a rubber coating. Otherwise, the arm is made of steel. These are these small additions where you can put the things you want to grind. This is also solid steel sheet. You don't go wrong. Next, the sanding band. Here you can see how big they are ultimately. So about 2 centimeters wide. Overall, if you would cut it, almost 76 centimeters long. Then the device, everything is pre-assembled. This means that you don't really have to assemble anything apart from the fact that you have to build either the roll or the other cultivation at the front. I will show you how to do this. Otherwise, nothing uncomfortably oily or something. Next, the straight component. That means you press the part you want to grind against this vertical plate. All of this is also made entirely of steel and relatively robust. Finally, the frequency converter. This is the device that you then put in the socket. You can see a switch, speed controller, start-stop button. What more do you want? And made my variant for the German socket. And last but not least, there are any documentation. Well, there are a few leaves of paper. Whether they are good for what? You have to judge yourself. There are a few pictures in it, but it should actually be self-explanatory. And here's something else to set the frequency converter. Device unpacked. Let's take a closer look at the function, starting with the tension and guide roll up here. You see, it is stored a bit tilting, and if you look closely, it is also a bit gluteus. This is what, in the end, ensures that the belt really stays in the middle and does not jump from the rolls. The preload is made here about this spring, and the necessary tools that you need to build is also included. If we loosen this screw, we can then swing the entire structure. So it revolves around the screw at the top. Is probably not that you always have to put back and forth, but you can do it, and I think it's a very practical story. So, looked at it from top. The first time I want to assemble the round roll, that is the part that I actually want to use. What you see is it is really nice. So storage is good. A roll made of aluminum, rubber coated, and thick ball bearings inside. Otherwise the arm is made of steel. The whole thing comes into this tour here. Can then be fixed with the quick tensioner at the distance you want. But I think that is not too often. First impression, astonishingly little wobbles. The whole thing over 90 degrees that you can see better from above how to proceed. The first time I will put one of the included straps on it to see how the whole thing is going. It is a bit fiddly in the situation, but the camera is also in the way. The belt tension is very good. You also see how to set the rolls. By turning on this button, you can adjust the inclination of the guide and tension roller, and thus the strap remains in the middle. Ideally, you set this up when the device runs slowly. Next, we test the other extension again. How has it changed? First of all, this screw has to be made out here. And that's not enough. That obviously has to get out of the screw completely. And then the roll can be pulled out. Immediately afterwards, the other extension can in the front. With the cultivation, you can also adjust the inclination. You don't have to be at the front exactly vertically. You can also set an angle depending on what you want to do and how you can best get there. Otherwise, screw tight again. Put on snow tensioners again. And the whole thing over 90 degrees. You can already tell that this is a bit fiddly with the imbus key during the adjustment, but I also have an idea for... Here too, you can say that the rolls are running really well. So storage is very solid. I had expected or feared something else. Finally, the frequency converter. Actually, as expected. Turn the button to set the speed. A switch and the engine is connected to the connector here. You really can't go wrong. A little hint at the point. The LED display seems to flicker. But that's only due to the camera. If you look at it, it is quite normal. Say, it shines consistently. In general, if you use the device that you should put on safety glasses and a kind of mask for the grinding dust, I don't have to tell you. Pay attention to your occupational safety. Very good that this is now happening with the band. Let's take a look at how the whole thing is set. I just do it again, and of course, to be on the safe side, switch off the device completely beforehand. That goes over the button below. First of all, I now roughly set the roll by hand that it runs in the middle. And turn on again, and then we let it run slowly. and see that we can find the middle about it. You don't really have to do that every time. So once it is set, then it runs very solidly. Sometimes for the speed test, you notice the volume, and we are slowly coming to areas where I have to say, standing directly on the workbench, it seems very quickly, actually too fast. The whole thing again from above. You can see the roll is really all round, so not to recognize unbreaking. The device is now not screwed on. This means that if something was going out, the device would now hike over the table. Now we take a look at the small shelf at the front, where you can put the parts you want to grind on. For the assembly, simply turn out the hexagon socket screw here. Screw it in again, and then you can then also freely set the angle in which the whole part should be with your sanding tape. If it is screwed, it is really unexpectedly stable. The device just wobbles a little bit back and forth here. Let's take this opportunity to test the weight. I put the entire device on the scales without the frequency inverter, and we come to a fairly accurate 6 kilograms. Now once again, the adjustment of the belt run with the round roller at the front. This has become slightly misaligned as a result of the conversion, but once you've found the center, it's actually relatively quick and easy. And as I said, if you don't make any major changes, you don't actually have to do this all the time. Again, higher speeds. It seems to vibrate a bit now, but it is less dramatic than it looks. The storage on the big roll again. Here you can screw on a shelf. It is different from the horizontal extension. And here too you can open the positions and distance to the roll. Now that I have built everything up and dismantled a few times, the structure seems a bit incomprehensible to me. But I think I have an idea of how to optimize it without needing additional things. On the one hand, you will probably adjust the tendency relatively often, and always do this with the hexagon. Key is time consuming. But we can simply install the quick tensioner that we need to push out the guide rod at the front, because you won't be able to adjust this rod as often as the tendency. That means we simply exchange the two screws against each other. This is the same thread, so relatively simple. And if you don't know these parts, if you pull out the handle, you can turn the screw freely. If the handle goes back in there, there is a spring in there, then you can transfer the rotation to the screw. To screw the whole thing in now, I pull the plastic handle up and turn the whole thing from above with a hexagon key. And so you can screw the whole thing relatively quickly and easily. And you see, it is much easier to adjust the tendency without needing tools. So I can recommend that. We are now doing exactly the same for the adjustment from the shelf, because you will also convert it much more frequently than the actual cultivation that is on it. This means that the screws, again, the thread, simply exchange the thread again, and so you can quickly and easily convert the things. I don't know why the manufacturer didn't do this directly. In the workshop, I first screwed the device on the table. This is something I would recommend to you, because if it is not screwed, the danger is much too great that it will slip when grinding and thus becomes unstable. All in all, I am pleasantly surprised by the stability of the entire construction. Because most parts are made of steel, it is surprisingly stable. This is something that I wouldn't have expected. I now have the 100 grinding strap on it for the test poles, and I will set a speed of about 2000 revolutions on the drive wheel. Since the speed on the workbench seemed a bit quickly, I have now briefly dealt with the frequency converter. For the first time, it is striking that the instructions are obviously of a completely different device. The language is lifting and lowering from a needle. Doesn't have the device, but we will do it that way. With the plus and minus buttons, you can now limit the maximum speed. This means that when the button is completely opened, the device runs a little slower. And that's exactly what I want. So the 5500 revolutions that the device can actually do are personally too fast for me. Something around 3000 is enough for me. And I'm just setting that now. So simply hold the minus button and then slowly counts down the speed. Again, said that the display is now flickering here is only due to the camera. If you look at it, it shines as normal. I have prepared several common materials for the grinding test. I want to start with a 9mm brass rod. On the line, you can see how quickly the material will be removed. Incidentally, the videos are all played in real time. That means they are not accelerated. What strikes me directly is that the engine does not go to my knees from the speed. I would have expected something else. In the end, I always hide a photo of the sanded side that you can judge it better. The next material is aluminum, more precisely 2007 aluminum, i.e. rotating and milling quality with a size 30x12mm. Here too, it can be seen that the grinding tape with the material actually makes relatively short in the process, and the material removal is surprisingly high. It continues again with aluminum, this time as a round rod, the same alloy, 25mm diameter. It continues with a threaded rod M12, galvanized steel. I assume that it is a 4.6, i.e. standard quality from the hardware store. It continues with the only piece of wood that I found in the workshop, a standard roof bat. I'll assume it is spruce, but don't nail me on it. I am not the wood guy. As expected, the removal is good here. What really disappointed me is that no sparks flew. Apparently not to have the same good material as on the advertising pictures. Now we look at the yield. Here you can see what was sanded down. It was really only ground what I showed you in the video, and that is actually more than I would have expected. Otherwise, the sanding tape looks quite intact. Here I actually expected something else. After my expectation, the tape would have been completely worn after the test cut, but here too I am pleasantly surprised. And now again the question, how long does the conversion really take when the device is screwed on so nothing wobbles? I would like to convert here from the straight grinding plate onto the roll and the device at the end still tilt in 90 degrees. All in all, I think it's a little faster when there is no camera in the way and you get a little better on the screws, and just did it a few times. It should be said that, as mentioned at the beginning, I rebuilt the quick tensioners, unlike the manufacturer actually provides. That means the screw that I am now solving. The quick tensioner would have been on it beforehand. I have to do that now with the Midbus key. The quick tensioner has proven itself very well, especially when it flaps. If you had to do this with the Allen key, there would definitely be a lot of time on it, and it would be relatively impractical. Otherwise, you see the conversion is made quickly. What is just missing at the front is the small shelf. I don't need it right now. Finally, I would like to show you briefly what I actually bought the device for. What you see here is a component made of steel. This is a chrome nickel steel, a stainless steel. More precisely 1.4301 or SUS 304. Very easy to weld. I like to use it in model building. In the part, M3 threads are included that must be deburred. And you see the round bike is actually going very quickly. And that is more or less the application for which I wanted the device. Really right for me. The tape has the same width, and you will now see in another part, it can happen that the parts, because they are laser cut, have such small slag balls. They also have to go away before the whole thing is installed. Let's see here again whether that is going well. From the speed, the approximately 2000 revolutions as with the test cuts. And here too the material is really bare in no time. Another component, a little filigree. The same material, i.e. stainless steel, that is now 0.8mm thick and about 5mm wide. And especially with these small parts, these small noses have to be sanded down. They are available to be able to cut the parts with the laser. Several parts are often connected because otherwise they would be too small. As expected, the parts are sanded very quickly. I do not have to tell you that protective glasses and respiratory protection against the dust generally are a matter of course in all grinding work. That means pays attention to your safety, wear protective glasses, and corresponds accordingly if you drag things that cause a lot of dust. Now we come to the conclusion. Is the device worth money or just technology scrap, as indicated at the beginning? All in all, I have to say that I am really pleasantly surprised. The overall construction is more robust than expected. The rolls run really quietly, and the engine has unexpected power reserves. So the core functions are really very well fulfilled. It should be said that primarily I want to grind as small parts as I showed you, and have less large material removal as a goal. Does the device win a prize for manufacturing quality? No, certainly not. You can tell that it was really trimmed for cost efficiency in many places. That means that here and there is a sharp edge. Some components could have been made more beautiful, but that really doesn't detract from the function in my eyes. For 220 euros, including shipping and VAT, you really don't go wrong in my eyes. Since I actually find the device quite good. You will also find a link in the video description where you can order this if you want. For the sake of transparency, I would like to point out that this is an affiliate link. We would also be at the end of the video in this new experimental format. Just write to me in the comments on how you liked it, or whether I forgot something for your taste. Otherwise, of course, as always, please leave a subscription and a thumb up there. For free, super motivating for me. Until next time, ciao!